Welcome to AI Security Ops, the weekly show where we cut through the hype and dig into how AI is being weaponized and how we can defend against it. This week's headlines range from prompt injection exploits that turn ChatGPT into a data leak tool, a critical vulnerability discovered in the N8N platform, and malicious Chrome extensions siphoning AI chat histories, not to mention a classic APT28 credential stealing campaign that now leans on AI-generated phishing lures. Fun times. This episode is brought to you by Black Hills Information Security and Anti-Siphon Training. BHIS helps organizations find real-world security gaps before attackers do through penetration testing, adversary emulation, and purple team work. Anti-Siphon delivers hands-on, practitioner-led training built around real attacks and real tools, so you can use what you learn immediately. Learn more at blackhillsinfosec.com and antisiphotraining.com. So the first story that we have is about a 0-day in N8N, which is an open source workflow automation platform. The flaw resides in the HTTP endpoint that parses workflow definitions without proper authentication checks. An attacker can send a crafted JSON payload that triggers remote code execution with the privileges of the N8N service account effectively taking over the host. Now, because N8N often runs with elevated rights to access internal APIs, the impact can cascade across an organization's automation layer very quickly. Automation platforms like N8N are increasingly the glue of modern infrastructure. So a single remote code execution vulnerability can compromise the entire pipeline. So with that introduction, I'm going to open up the floor. What do you gentlemen have to say about this? I have wanted to dive into N8N, but only so many hours in a day. What do you think?
Yeah, so Derek and I have both been playing around with this quite a bit, as well as a couple other people I know at the company. Bo has been playing around with this a lot. One of the debates we're still having, is it N8N or is it Nathan? Which I said to Derek the other day is kind of like the Southern pronunciation of Nathan.
Nathan. According to the N8N website, it is N8N. So
yeah, N8N. All right.
That's what I've heard most folks on YouTube saying, but I do like Nathan. It's Nathan.
Fun. Yeah, it just kind of rolls right off the tongue. Nathan.
But I mean, is it Azure? Is it Azure? Is it Azure? No one knows. Azure.
If you want to be fancy about it. Oh.
Potato. Right. Can we call the whole thing off?
Mm-hmm.
But the tool though is awesome. It makes automating these different workflows or throwing together a workflow automation, I'll say, so much easier. I mean, could you go out and code this all up yourself? Certainly. I mean, you could go out, you could put together the discrete Python pieces. You could have ChatGPT and Anthropic, whatever you like to use, help you put together these pieces. Sure, you can do that. But what you get here is that the whole drag and drop, like visual style of programming. So if anyone's ever played with something like LabVIEW before, which I've played around with a whole lot back when I worked at the university and dealing with data collection and signals processing, it can make some of these tasks are a little more abstract sometimes, a lot easier, because you can see that, okay, I have this block that does this, and the data flows out to this block that then does this. And in no time at all, basically, you can have an entire workflow together that's pulling in information and sending it, massaging it through into whatever format you want and pulling it out. And so, Derek, what's some of the stuff you've been working on with it? I know you've been putting together some cool stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of similar in the same vein where I was using N8N to actually take proof of concept Python code that I wrote for our class that does essentially a cyber threat intelligence newsletter. And I replicated that literally sitting on the couch watching a basketball game in Nathan. Now I used a template and, kind of change things around. But I think that to your point, you can write the scaffolding or the glue code, whatever you want to call it, around large language models to perform tasks other than chatbot tasks, right? But the glue kind of is in the widgets of the web interface. It's like a web canvas interface to drag and drop different functionality to make it easier. I say easier because it's not easy. I've spent like the entire morning today trying to do something much more complicated than a newsletter. But I think it's really promising from an orchestration perspective. I really do. I applaud the folks at Naten for open sourcing or making available for free, rather, the Docker container that is so full functioned. Kudos to them. As far as the vulnerability goes, yeah, it's serious, but I mean, is anybody surprised? I'm not, right? Because I mean, I know we've said this on the show before. I mean, the pioneers take the arrows, right? And yes, it is a flaw that they should fix. Hopefully, they fixed it already. I haven't checked. But I mean, if you're an organization that's running Naten on the outside of your network, exposed to the internet, I would question why you did that in the first place. I'm not saying that you shouldn't take an external data into your workflow, but standard information security rules apply here, right? Like, you shouldn't expose something to the internet without, thinking of the risks and repercussions. And so to me, that's like the biggest risk, at least from what I can tell, right? Yes, it's an unauthenticated RCE, so as you can communicate with the endpoint. So internet exposure is the most serious thing. Then internally, I mean, yes, I wouldn't expose it internally to anything either. And I know I would authorize what should talk with it, right? And I know that we've said this before, but I mean, this is really what is old is new again in information security, right? I mean, I think that you should look at all AI technologies as beta at this point, still in 2026, especially when it comes to agents and orchestration and data processing internally with your sensitive data. And you should be very careful what you allow to communicate with those things, because look, the folks that are coding Naten are worried about functionality at this point, not necessarily security, but maybe now they're a little bit more worried about security.
Yeah. Well, it's you said it yourself. Everything old is new again, and over again with these AI implementations, I'm seeing that it's the same suspects, the usual suspects that we run into with any type of thing. If the authentication is bad, if the RBAC is bad, if there aren't clearly defined policies or guidelines in terms of what it can access, of course, badness is going to happen. Who is really surprised by this?
Well, not information security practitioners, right? I mean, and the thing that I'm doing with N8N at the moment is I'm literally allowing a model access to tools that I have running in a container with an API, and then in some cases like command line tools. Just those things in itself are like risky, right? Now, I'm not putting together a production system at the moment, right? But I think that, if you are putting together a production system, and whether it's a chatbot or some kind of other AI powered system, just like anything else you've implemented in the last 20 years, you should probably have a security assessment performed on that system by someone who is qualified to do so.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
Anything else on the N8N vulnerability, or shall we move on?
Let's hit the next one.
Okay. So the next story is about ChatGPT's memory feature supercharging prompt injection. Researchers have discovered a zombie agent exploit, which abuses ChatGPT's new long-term memory feature. An attacker will craft a prompt which stores malicious instructions in the model's persistent memory, then later trigger it via a seemingly benign follow-up query. The module dutifully executes the payload, leaking conversation history, or running arbitrary code on integrated tools. So this attack is hinging on the assumption that memory persistence is benign and that user prompts are fully trusted.
Does anybody else hear the cranberries right now? I'm just wondering. Sorry.
Yes.
I mean, it's also how memory works, right? I'm assuming some things, I did not read in depth about this, but I'm assuming some things need to be true. Like you send me a crafted URL, I have to click on it. I probably also have to be authenticated to ChatGPT, right? Like, and so, yeah, I get that, but I mean, the alternative is to turn memory off and not use the feature. I don't know.
which we've talked about on a different episode. Honestly, that's what I do. Not because of I didn't even have the security risk in mind, but I don't like it when it uses other chats as context for current chats. I mean, certainly, I mean, within the context of a chat, I wanted to use my previous messages to guide future messages, but if I start a new chat, I don't want it to use anything else that I've done previously, because maybe I'm chatting with it and I went down the entirely wrong path when I'm trying to solve a problem. But now it thinks that that's the way that I want to go when I'm trying to approach the problem from a different angle. And I don't like that. I like a blank, clean slate. And I know everyone's got their own preferences. And you can go about it other ways too, which you should be deleting your chats periodically. I mean, it's not good. I don't think it's good to just let them keep building up. So I do like to delete them also. But personally, I'm a fan of just shutting off the memory feature in general.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm kind of a little more nuanced with it. I don't run it on chatgpt.com, and I use ChatGPT for more kind of like one-off kinds of things. But I do have it running for Claude Desktop. I really like Claude Desktop. And so I want it there. In fact, I asked Claude Desktop what it knew about me, and I felt like it knew more about me and what I do, especially when it comes from a coding perspective, than I did. And I was like, dang, this is good enough. I might actually include this in my annual evaluation, CJ.
I did
it's
something
some great
similar.
things, man. It was like, I didn't even think about that. That's really good, right? And so I think
please do go on.
Yeah, please continue, right? And so I think there's a time and place for it. I think people just need to be aware and evaluate their risks, right? I'm also someone who I don't even click on links that, Brian Fairman might send me, right? I'm probably going to copy.
Understandable. I wouldn't either.
Yeah. I mean, one time I actually had John Strand send me an email, and it had thoughts ? And then a link to a Word document. And so I went and downloaded the Word document in a VM and actually looked at it and made sure that it was like not weaponized, right? I mean, this is years ago, right? And I actually called John and be like, did you mean to send me that? And he's like, oh yeah, I want you to take a look. So I guess maybe I have a little bit higher level of paranoia, but I mean, just kind of like balance that risk kind of reward thing, I think.
Well, that's the thing about being an infosec. I often feel like I have this split personality, like a new gizmo will come out and I go, ooh, shiny. And it's the same thing. Ow, that hurts. Every new shiny toy has a downside, like the teddy bears that got released over Christmas that are AI enabled. Did you see any?
That sounds fun.
That? Yeah, I haven't seen these.
Sounds like the beginning
it was
of a
just
horror
as disastrous movie as you can imagine. So, I mean, like you, I leverage the memory feature judiciously. And a while back, I had it write up a biography of me for a potential podcast. And of course, I'm looking at what it says, and I'm intellectually, I'm going, I detect no falsehoods. But on an emotional level, it's like, who the hell is this person? That person sounds like they really know what's going on.
That's kind of my response. I'm like, man. But I don't know. I could look at the system prompt. I had ChatGPT kind of flatter me today in something. I asked it about, like, to help me do something. Is like, man, what you're doing is serious and awesome, or something along those lines. I'm like,
God, I hate the semantic. I hate when it sucks up to me. The things that I do like about ChatGPT, you have the ability to have a temporary conversation, and those do not leverage any of the memory features. So I'll use that if, say, I have a one-off, I don't have any need to capture it for future reference. And I'm basically using ChatGPT as a search engine in that case. But there are times that the memory feature is nice because I hate having to tell it over and over again not to use inline dashes in its output. But that's me. So, but what do we think about the data breach? I mean, again, are we really surprised?
I mean, I think data breach is a strong term here, right? Like, is it a ChatGPT data breach, or is it a, like, I don't know. It's kind of like, kind of sort of a data breach, but not really. It's like calling Stealer malware a data breach. Like, it's not like a whole bunch of data from a whole bunch of folks was taken from ChatGPT. It's that you were, I'll say, targeted and clicked on a link, and then some of your data was stolen. So, I mean, not diminishing that for anyone that's happened to, but I don't know. Like, usually when I hear data breach, I think of like a company and a lot of data, right? But I mean, I guess, like you said earlier, potato. I don't know how. I don't know how architecturally you fix that, right? I actually would hope that browser controls would help, but obviously not.
Well, the idea of the way they describe the whole zombie agent thing reminds me a lot of a persistent cross-site scripting vuln. And
like a stored cross-site scripting. That's what I
exactly
thought of when I heard this.
Yep.
But a whole lot harder to fix. I mean, it's sort of like a feature. I mean, it's like part of the problems with some of the issues that, we've highlighted across the last couple months of this podcast is things like prompt injection is the issue and the feature, right? I mean, it's just how it works. And so, and I think I actually read here recently over the break that I guess it was either OpenAI or Anthropic basically admitted that prompt injection has no fix in sight. Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's the nature of the technology. Until we find a different, like, what comes after a transformer or what the next technology is that's AI, then I don't know that it gets fixed.
Yeah, no, at this point, it's basically like saying fix social engineering. I mean,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
it's
with
you can
web forms. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you first, please.
All right. No, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, it's about, blocking down the things around it, mitigating the actual risks and mitigating the damage that come along with it, But yeah, it's at this point, I mean, there's architecturally, there's not really a good way to fully address the issue.
Yeah, I guess one thing that for this particular thing is, I mean, maybe not put things that are sensitive into ChatGPT. I mean, there is that, right?
There's that. Yep.
I don't think that I typically don't put what I would consider to be sensitive information into ChatGPT. Maybe a little bit more with Claude Code and Claude Desktop. I would consider that a little bit more sensitive, but that's not really applicable in this situation, right? Different technology, different thing. So
the thought that comes to mind for me is that when it comes to like web interfaces, input validation is usually fairly straightforward. But with an LLM or some other artificial intelligence generative doohickey, how do you validate the input? Like you said, how do you do that protection for social engineering? Because
a little bit more porous of a Band-Aid, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, you're basically going to put another classifier in front of it to try and classify the text as, malicious or not. And it's not like, I don't know that you can get away with the same kind of input. Like I've done web app tests where, yeah, the web input or the user input was highly restricted. And in some cases I was still able to get around it, right? But I mean, how much could you put in place in ChatGPT before you started affecting functionality of being able to use the app?
Yeah, I mean that's been the ongoing battle with, I mean, security in general, right? Security versus convenience. I mean, at some point you have to be able to use the thing.
Yeah,
because the most secure state is off.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just unplug it and it's probably all right.
There are reasons why I'm very glad I live in a remote area. If I want to go off grid, all I need to do is flip one button, and that is a very reassuring thought on a regular basis. So since we're talking about ChatGPT, the next story is also about ChatGPT. In this case, it's a new zero-click attack. Radware's research team uncovered a zero-click attack that abuses ChatGPT's agentic features. By sending a crafted URL to a victim's email, an attacker triggers a model to auto-execute a data export routine without any user interaction. Now, I'm curious if this is specific to email accounts with a specific provider, because I know not all email hosting providers are created equal, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So the model supposedly retrieves the user's recent chat logs, exfiltrates them to a command and control server, and then the exploit relies on the model's default permission to access prior conversation history and the lack of authentication on the auto-execute endpoint.
Sounds like a fancy way to say indirect prompt injection. But that's what it sounds like to me, right? Is I know that you have, I'll say Gmail, your OpenAI account is reading agentically your email. So I guess it can give you a summary of your daily email. And then there's a prompt in there that gets the model to go off and grab things. And I mean, I think this is, again, one of those things that's not going to get fixed, right? Not entirely. I mean, and this is actually pretty serious when you start thinking of like other things, like, I mean, on your phone, right? Like, you can have Siri summarize emails and things, texts and things of that nature. I would bet to some degree there's a vulnerability there. So I think indirect prompt injection is very, very interesting and sort of like what do you call it? The silent killer, right? Like you don't even know that it's there. Am I reading that right, Brian? Sounds like indirect prompt injection.
Yeah, certainly. I'm pulling up the whole article over here, and they're also labeling this as zombie agent as well. So I'm curious if this is related to the last one that we just did, because it seems like two different things here. Because the other one is,
but it seems like there's overlap.
Yeah. What's that? Like one's a persistence,
URL.
like the other one's more of like a persistence mechanism. This one is like more of like the initial like a different compromise vector. Like I said, zero click, that you got the email summarization and you're just embedding the instructions within the emails, which is been an idea that's been around for a while. I mean, we participated in that CTF like a year ago that Microsoft put on, the LL Mail challenge, which was basically doing this. You were sending emails to a fake account, essentially, or account setup that had a summarizer, and the entire goal was to get the summarizer to perform some kind of an action. And we actually have a lab of that in one of our AI classes.
And the one that we are teaching in the fall in Deadwood.
Oh, that's right, fall, and also I think it's coming up in February or March, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's March. Yeah. A virtual teach of it, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah. And so, I don't think this stuff is going anywhere. This is probably going to be a recurring thing when we do news episodes. Like, oh, look, it's the latest indirect prompt injection.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good.
So the next story is that 2 Chrome extensions were caught stealing ChatGPT and DeepSeek chats from 900,000 users. This article was posted in the Hacker News. Security researchers found 2 malicious Chrome extensions that silently capture conversations from OpenAI's ChatGPT and also from DeepSeek, along with regular browsing data. Once installed, the extensions inject JavaScript into the AI web UI, read the DOM, the document object model, for chat text, and post it to an attacker-controlled server. Supposedly, over 900,000 users were exposed because the extensions passed Chrome's store review by masquerading as productivity tools. Shocker.
I almost feel like that this isn't the story as much as maybe like, do OpenAI and DeepSeek's websites not have, or are they blocking third-party scripts like in their content security policy?
It sounds
I don't know. I don't know how this works. Like, I have to see it, but that's actually, man, that's pretty sophisticated to go after some chats, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to look up what the actual extensions were. ChatGPT for Chrome with GTP5, Claude Sonnet, and DeepSeek AI, and then the other one was called AI Sidebar with DeepSeek, ChatGPT, Claude, and more.
Sounds useful.
So they're acting like they're an extension to implement the AI within your browser. And of course, once you log in, now you've given away the keys to the kingdom.
Oof. Yeah, that's dirty. Yeah.
Attackers are sneaky and mean.
So are these extensions, were they actually like on the Chrome store? I guess they were.
Apparently.
Sounds like it, yeah, that they managed to push their way through. I mean, it'd be relatively easy to do, I would think, with these, because I mean, what are they doing? So they're integrating with the AI tools, which, I mean, sure, okay, and then they're just funneling over the data to like another site. I mean, we have probably tons of extensions that are collecting your data and sending it somewhere else. So I wouldn't think that would send off a lot of alarm bells unless people were like really digging through and looking to see, what it's actually doing. But I mean, it's not like it's like trying to pull out your secret, like your storage credentials or.
I was going to say, anybody who's done web app testing in the last like 8 or 9 years, like when you go to a modern web app, the amount of tracking and just scripts that run from third-party resources is insane. And most of the web app tests that I did, I spent half of the year, doing web app tests last year for BHS. And I can't remember, like, I mean, it was like a consistent finding for allowing third-party scripts through CSP. I was actually able to take advantage of one of them in a test. And so I just kind of feel like that maybe OpenAI and I guess DeepSeek folks, if you're listening, you might want to fix that on your site. I don't know. But yeah, I guess for users, I mean, just be aware of what you're installing in your browser, especially if it's the browser that you use to do things like banking and Amazon and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Yep. Work tasks, whatever.
Well, I have a browser for work and a browser for personal. And then I have a browser for when I don't want either of those browsers touching what I'm trying to go after on the internet.
Yes.
I do the same thing. And even on my personal system, I have different browsers for different personas. I mean, all the fine online banking stuff stays in one set of browsers, and there's other stuff that goes to other browsers, and never the twain shall meet.
Yeah, I actually take it even a step further. I have a whole separate system that I do banking and financial stuff on, that I don't really do anything else that touches the internet so much. Like, I don't browse on it. I do some other things on it, right? But like, yeah, I guess I'm privileged in that way. I have enough systems where I can do that. But I mean, I just, again, when you evaluate risk for a living, I guess those kinds of things just start to happen.
I think this is the
don't
classic.
install those browser extensions.
Yeah, I feel bad for, quote, normal people, because they don't know the stuff that we know. They don't know that just because it looks shiny, that no, these are mean, nasty, awful people who are looking to steal your entire retirement fund. It sucks.
Yeah, I wonder how long it's going to be, though, because like right now, my wife, she basically she has a work computer, right? But at home, she doesn't really use a computer at all. She uses her phone for everything, right? And so, I mean, I think most like normies kind of do it that way now. So like at some point, like if you're using a computer or a laptop, you're kind of going over into the danger zone, it seems like, because you can't install an extension on your mobile browser, can you? I've never actually tried. So
I don't know.
I actually don't know either. I've never tried.
I've never even considered that. Take the buyer beware approach when using any extensions. That's about all I can say. All right, ready for the next and last story?
Yep.
The obligatory APT story.
Of course. Russian APT-28 runs credential stealing campaign targeting energy and policy organizations. So this is another article from the Hacker News. APT-28, also known as Blue Delta, apparently launched a credential harvesting operation against Turkish energy and nuclear research entities, a European think tank, and groups in North Macedonia and Uzbekistan. The group distributed phishing emails containing malicious Microsoft Office documents that embed AI-generated spear phishing text, making the lures more convincing. Once a victim opens a doc, PowerShell loader contacts a C2 server, downloads a credential dumping tool, and then exfiltrates the data. So, am I the only one who feels like this is a replay of old news?
Yeah, I mean, look, we do this here at Black Hills, right? Like we are currently using in-depth open source reconnaissance to then use LLMs to create things like this, right? I mean, I'd be surprised if every threat actor wasn't doing it. Right. And it's certainly, especially like with language barriers, right? So what do you tell people now about emails? I mean, I think personally, we have failed as one of the biggest failures of the information security world was to tell people to not click on links from people that you don't know. Don't click on that link in email. And then what does information security do? They send out links for you to click on, right? And then they don't bother to tell you that probably you should be careful of links that come from people that you do know, right? Because if their account got compromised, then you're probably going to get a link from them and then you click on it. And so I think it's always a little bit more nuanced. And the advice I've given to my children is if it comes from the internet, even if it seems to be from somebody that you know, be very suspicious of it and try and verify it, especially if it's asking for passwords or money. Either one of those, right? And so I just, this is another one of those things that is not going anywhere, and it's going down the road of, like crazy, realistic deep fakes on Teams social engineering in the future, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I'm curious so they mentioned the malicious documents here. I'm curious if there's macros that they had built in or what, and if it's in this case, another point too would be, I mean, macros are disabled by default at this point, and as an organization, you can shut it off so that users can't even re-enable them. That's what I saw on a recent engagement I was on. I was just like company-wide, like literally just disabled, and the option to re-enable it is just literally not there. And I know that feature has been around for like a while, but like it's more, I think it's basically kind of more, it's a little bit easier and more of the default these days. So for organizations would suggest looking into that for your users.
The only thing that's AI related to this story is the fact that the spear phishing text was AI generated. And I know we've talked before about how phishing campaigns have gotten more difficult to spot because of the AI generated text in the phishing or smishing or vishing or whatever it is, ishing that's going on. But other than that, it seems like the same old.
To bring it back full circle to N8N, because that's what I'm here for, is I'm pretty sure you could create a workflow that would go off and automatically run, some tools to gather open source reconnaissance on a given individual, and then have a large language model craft potential spear phishing ruses. Sounds like a fun workflow to create.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
All right. So, well, those are the stories we have. The bottom line is and I've said this so many times, the AI genie is out of the bottle, and we're still all learning as we go along. As CJ likes to say, this is the worst that AI will ever be going forward. Hopefully it will get better. but it has definitely changed a lot of games, and just be cautious, be careful. Don't just arbitrarily throw sensitive information into any chatbot. Pause. Any other closing remarks?
I'll channel my inner jaw fire and say, keep on prompting.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. See you next time.